Welcome everybody to UFO Man Live. My name is Tim or UFO Man, and to my side is my friend and my co-host, Tommy Highway. Tommy?
Hey folks, I'm Tommy Highway. Want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. Got a great show for you. We're going to talk about some stuff old, going to talk about some stuff new. We've got some great news for you, and also, as always, our great videos. So before we begin, though, we need to go ahead and talk about the report again. Once again, folks, we don't have it yet, but there have been supposed leaks to the media about the content of this thing. Now, who knows whether these reports are true or not, but the gist that we're getting from all the information that Tim and I are receiving here at the channel is that it sure looks like we're going to get some washed out version of information that they promised us. What I mean by that is it certainly looks like, at least from preliminary reports, again, just take this as it is, preliminary reports and leaks have suggested that they're going to try to slant this toward someone else's military. In other words, this is not an alien craft. It's not alien technology. This is some kind of a craft or crafts that have been created by one of our adversaries. In fact, what I've been hearing is they're going to try to slant it toward the Russians. Now, let me tell you why I have a problem with this. First off, and I don't wish to offend any Russian citizens that watch the channel or anything like that, but there is something I want to state, and it is a fact, and that is that Russian technology has historically been hit or miss. In fact, mostly miss. I mean, we've seen a lot of their submarines have issues and went down. We've just here like last year, there was an accident on one of their new nuclear missiles that they're trying to develop, I guess, a new propulsion system for, that blew up, killed a bunch of people, and irradiated one of their port cities. Okay, so you'd have to understand, if the Russians are involved in this and they do have this type of technology, I'd like to know where their money came from, because in the last 25 years, Russia hasn't been able to pay attention. Now, that being said, we can go back, like Tim and I were talking before the show, we can go back and look at actual UFO reports from the 1800s at this point. Okay, so did Russia or China have that technology that long ago? Let's go to World War II, where again, Russian technology was very hit or miss. We've got the Foo Fighters, and a lot of those were actually documented sightings that pilots were seeing back in those days. And they were documenting them because they thought it might be some kind of a new wonder weapon or whatever, right? Now, you're going to tell me that the Russians had that kind of technology back in World War II? Now, let's fast forward it. Let's say if they're going to go ahead and try to pin this on the Chinese, try to say that this is Chinese technology. Well, that may very well be, but you also have to understand that China has only been a sophisticated industrial nation for the past 25 years or so, basically since the Clinton administration. So sure, they've had some successes with their technology and space and things of that nature, but like Tim and I were talking earlier, it's pretty easy to build off the success and failure of others. And when it comes to spacecraft and technology like that, we do share a lot of that information with other space agencies. So yes, China has really come a long way in the last 25 years, but are they at the level at this point where they've created some sort of field propulsion vehicles? And not only have they created that, but they've actually created fleets of these things. Are we to really believe that? I, for one, do not, folks. I think if they're about to roll something out on that report to that nature, something that says, well, we think it may be a foreign adversary or something like that, they need to go ahead, pretend that we're not stupid, wheel that report right back into where they got it, and bring us back something that we can actually believe at this point, something that's actually plausible. Because foreign technology, fleets of them, I don't think so. That's not plausible, folks. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Although, like you said, they're leaning toward hypersonic drone technology. And like you told me privately before one of our live streams, hypersonic drones can mainly go straight. They can't stop on a dime. They can't make right and left-hand turns on a dime. And they mainly travel in our atmosphere. So if you look at them, some of them can go in space, yes, but they don't make sharp turns and stop on a dime, because the pilots within the drones, if they're piloted, if they're not piloted, they would be damaged in some way, and the pilots would be killed if they were piloted. So what I'm going to say to you is this. Do I agree with Tommy? Yes, I agree. Any foreign adversarial country probably has money issues, just like the United States. And in regards to that, financing 50 to 100 flying pyramid-shaped drones that swarm 9 warships most likely won't happen. So in the opinion of the UFO Man channel, we stand firm in our belief that this is not the case and that they're trying to suppress the information of 70 years of collection of UFO data and not give it out to the public. In fact, Lou Elizondo said the other day in an interview on the Black Vault, he said to John Greenwald, he said, the UFO report's going to be about 16 to 17 pages long, and you can expect it to be underwhelming, meaning that they're not going to give you what we're expecting. Everybody's expecting clear images, clear videos, and a definitive conclusion. The problem is the UAPTF, or the UAP task force, only consisted of a few people, and those few people have been fighting against 70 years of suppression. And most of that data has been classified. So in 6 months, do you think that they can get all this data that we're expecting to be unclassified and free for the American public to view? I don't think so. So what do you think, Tommy?
Well, and I think that's right. I think that there's an awful lot of ground to cover when it comes to this investigation. However, it's not like they haven't already investigated these things. A lot of the sightings that we're talking about from these military pilots, are in fact, almost a decade old, and some of them probably are older than that. So it's not like they haven't had enough time to figure out, whether this should be classified or that should be classified or those kinds of things. I think that to Tim's point earlier, he spoke to me privately. The United States government, let's just say their tits in a ringer in a lot of ways here. Number one, you've got the Roswell incident. Okay. Are they going to come out and say, well, yeah, okay, the Roswell incident happened, aliens are real? I'm not looking for them to do that. I'm not looking for them to do that because I think that it would not only upset the American population to a certain degree, but it would also upset the balance of power between nations. I mean, think about it right now. We're freaking out because we're thinking we don't know what these things are. We don't know what this technology is. What if somebody were to come out and say, oh, by the way, it's our technology. We have this technology and you don't. Okay, wars have been started over lesser things than that, folks. They really have.
Right. Another thing I told Tommy was that if they come out and admit, oh yeah, alien life exists and we've known about it for over 70 years, then they also are coming out and admitting that they lied to the American public for over 70 years.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And they don't want to look inept to the American public. Right. They don't want to be embarrassed on a political basis.
And it's not like we don't know that they've lied to us before. The American government has lied to the American people in the world many times. Gulf War would be a great example of that. Okay, so it's not like we would be surprised if that were the case. But to put it simply, they're going to have to give us something more than a fuzzy photo or these images that they have of the Tic Tac that are absolutely crystal clear 4K images, but they give us the lowest resolution possible. If they don't give us something like that, they're going to lose so much credibility on this. And that's where we come in, folks, Tim, myself, and you folks in our audience, because if they do try to give us a runaround on this thing, if they really do, which sounds like it's probably more likely than not, then we, the people, have to get on this. We have to write our congressman. We have to put the pressure on the government to release more information and give us the real story this time. You don't want to tell us ET is real, fine, but don't play us like we're a bunch of saps. I mean, because we're better than that. And now that everybody has sporting a really nice camera in their pocket, the cat's out of the bag. You might as well just go ahead and don't treat us like we're children. Give us something that we can use. We insist.
Right. Lou Elizondo also mentioned that as well. He said it's like an 800-pound gorilla on their shoulder. And do they want to continue carrying it for another couple decades, or do they want to get rid of that gorilla and put it out there for the American people to decide? Because I think that we as a public, for the most part, are smart enough to be able to determine for ourselves what we believe in. But I have to tell you, I stayed up, or should I say, the UFO Man channel stayed up all night on the night of the 31st. We were scrubbing the news, we were scrubbing the internet, and we were scrubbing the news on the 1st as well to look for that alleged UFO report, which never materialized. We do that all week. We try to catch up on news, and tonight we are going to show you a compilation of news clips that spanned the entire week so that you can catch up yourselves if you haven't already. Tommy?
That's right, Tim. We got some great news tonight. We actually have some great videos. Tim put together a compilation that's really fantastic this week. Tim, you want to go ahead and light it up and roll it? Or?
Sure. Here we go. This is the UFO video review for 6/5/2021.
Tak tahu. Tak dapur lah.
What gets me about this one is it looks like it's got some sort of a plume coming out of the top of it. But when you watch it go into the water, there's like very little splash.
Well, I had two scenarios suggested to me that maybe this is a spent rocket part that's coming down, but a rocket, when it hits the water, would have splashed or broken up. This enters the water smoothly like the
Greg Louganis.
The one from, well, yeah, that too, but like the UFO that was just released from the USS Russell. Mm-hmm. So.
Tak tahu.
Right there.
Tak dapur lah.
Pretty as you please.
Now this was filmed by a young child in a boat. So if you wonder why the camera's going up and down, they're in a boat. They're out on the water and they see this come down. See, there is a plume behind it. You can see the plume. The only reason I question whether it's a rocket or not is how it enters the water. But you can see the plume behind it right here, right above the actual object, extending off of it. That's the clearest photo I could get of it. What do you think, Tommy?
That is really hard to say. I think obviously we're looking at something that's got mass to it. If it was a spent rocket, whose rocket was it? We didn't hear anything about that. Elon Musk is basically collecting all his stuff now. I don't know what that is, but it sure went in that water pretty as you please. I mean, like just very little splash, if any, just like it was almost part of the water, kind of.
Right. Okay. 3 girls, 2 UFOs, Outer Banks, North Carolina.
There's another one. Taylor, are you getting this? There's 2. You guys. This isn't funny though. We gotta like keep backing up.
And folks, if you ever find yourself in a position where you've got your camera out and you're filming a UFO, just a suggestion, do your best to keep your subject in view.
And brace your arm.
Yeah.
Brace your arm. See these 3, there are 2 girls walking toward it, but the third one's filming.
That is a bright light that doesn't belong there.
Yeah, it's huge too.
Yep. If that's a drone or something, it's awfully bright.
There's another one. Taylor, are you getting this? There's two. You guys. This isn't funny though. We gotta like keep backing up.
Hard to say.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Here's a UFO outside Casper, Wyoming on 5/30/2021. So it was quite recent. What I noticed about this is it looks egg-shaped.
Yep.
Not round. And it is definitely moving. You'll see it here in a second when you see the trees.
How interesting.
It's moving really slow. This is FLIR camera footage. Here it comes.
That's amazing.
I mean, the only sound you hear are the bugs
Mm-hmm.
and the frogs.
Huh. Anybody have any thoughts on this one?
That's what it looks like up close. Yeah, there isn't much to say on that one, really.
Mm-hmm.
Here's 4 reddish UFOs filmed by tourists speaking Spanish over Holland.
¿Qué verga es esa? Son unas luces. Mira esa verga, mira esa verga. Espera, espera. 4, 1, 2, 3. ¿Qué verga es
That's
esa?
amazing.
Unas luces.
Why I ruled these out as Chinese lanterns is because the 3 lights, the 3 main lights, are maintaining the same level when they move.
Yep.
Chinese lanterns would be all over the place. Plus, they have a reddish glow.
It's moving a little fast for that too, I think.
Yeah, plus they have a reddish glow to them. There were 4 of them. That's what it looks like. Here's a UFO over the Channel Islands. Oh, I gotta turn the sound on. Hold on.
Look how slow it's moving. It's moving too slow. It's too big and too slow.
I'll zoom in.
Oh, see that? What is that? I think it's a UFO. Look how slow it's moving. It's moving too slow.
That's amazing.
Too big and too slow.
You can rule all kinds of things out right off the bat on that.
It's moving too slow.
Now, folks, is that foreign adversarial technology? I personally think not.
I agree with you, Tim.
It's too big and too slow. What is that? It's moving too slow. It's too big and too slow.
There it is up close. Now, when you look at it, it almost looks like it has a rectangular shape to it, kind of like a rectangular edge.
Beveled.
What is that?
Yeah.
See, you can see the edge here on the left. It's hard to see my mouse, but on the right here, there is an edge as well. So what this is, who knows? Pardon the language on this next one, but I like it because it's true reaction.
I don't know if I want to know what these are. This just tripped me out. This just tripped me the fuck out, dog. Oh, what the fuck? Dog, hell nah.
That shit had a baby. Hell nah.
Dude, this is now I'm kind of, this is weird. Look at this shit. I'm at work.
All right, so this shit is fucking weird. We were just talking, and then another light bulb just fucking, our orb dropped out from underneath. It just had a fucking baby. I can't believe this shit. I ain't making this shit up. What the fuck is that?
Dog, this shit is bright as fuck, but you
Dog,
can't
we watched
tell in
that
the
shit
video.
drop. Dog, it's dropping these niggas. These niggas are talking. Hey!
Delay, look at this shit, dog.
See that shit? Dog, what the fuck is...
So there were at least 3 witnesses, at least 3 lights. Don't know what they were. Have no idea.
Interesting.
And they're above a power plant. Now, those are the zoom in pictures. What I think is unique about this is there looks like there's some type of field around the outside of the white light.
And we see that that's very common in a lot of craft because of probably their field propulsion system. It does tend to distort a little bit.
Right. Right there. Okay. Here we go. Okay, it doesn't appear to be going fast right at the moment, but you'll see. Tommy, didn't you say that you saw something like this in more than just white light?
Yeah, this is a common model. That could have been one of the smaller ones that I'm convinced what I saw was some sort of a mothership that was in trouble, and 2 orbs that looked just about like that pulled up next to it and actually assisted it. And once they got it started or whatever they did to it, they all left together. And a lot of folks see these. I mean, this and it also, you'll see a lot of reports of this type of an orb dripping something really bright, like bright molten material. I've also witnessed that. So they're kicking some kind of waste product or something out.
Right. Hey guys, it's UFO Man. Here's a clip out of St. Louis, Missouri, filmed on 5/27/2020. Take a look, make an assessment, let me know what you think.
It's the ducks. They're flickering all right.
I have no clue what that is.
No idea.
Anybody in the chat room have an idea on that one? A flying traffic cone. Yeah, you never know, Bob. Here's a disc dropping an ore over Boulder, Colorado.
Some of his neighbors also captured extraordinary images. These were taken by Anne and Bruce Morrison.
We were just talking about that, where it's dropping molten material.
Yep.
Oh, look, it's right there.
Just drop something out, Gary. Again.
I don't know what it is that they're dropping, but when they drop it, or in my case, it lit up the night sky like it was 12 noon. I mean, it was absolutely, it was so bright that you could not look at it. And I was pretty close to these things when it happened.
This happened in 91, but I thought it was significant enough to take a look at. I mean, how it moves, how bright it gets, and what it's dropping. It looks like it's dropping more than just one light, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a couple of things, a couple of different things there.
So I'm trying to film this object that has been over my house for half an hour. When I zoom the camera into it, it's the weirdest fucking shit I've ever seen. It's right there. You see? It's flashing all kinds of different colours. I have no idea what it is.
Backwoods Buster suggested that they're actually emptying toilets, and that's what they're dropping.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, that's a good one, Backwoods Buster. I agree.
It's been a heck of a chilly night.
So these are the close-ups. At least they were. Hold on a second here. I mean, what is that? That's really hard to say.
I'd say swamp gas reflected off a duck's butt.
Okay, Tommy, you're fired. Here's a black disc UFO seen over a ridge in Arkansas. Hello, Brenda. Welcome to the chat.
This guy's got a real camera.
Yep, because he can really zoom in.
Yep. It's just hanging out there.
Look how far away he had to zoom in. And I've got a large enlargement here.
That is a
Right.
classic flying saucer if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, right there. Yep.
And zooming in like that, it'd be real hard to spoof that.
Kelly Lewis says she wants a real camera. There goes a UFO too. Anyways, thank you for watching this week's UFO Man video review. And moving on to segment number 2, Tommy, take it away.
Folks, UFOs incurring on military installations and ships, things of that nature, is not a new thing. It's been going on for a very long time. In fact, I've got a story here from 1965 that I want to go ahead and read to you folks. On October 7th of 1965, oh, wait a minute. Before I get into this story, I want to let you know that we have audio of the control tower speaking to pilots and other people on the base at Edwards Air Force Base during this encounter. And we'll go ahead and leave a link to that audio in the description below. Check it out. It's like 45 minutes, but it's bone chilling and it'll blow your mind. But on October 7th of 1965, reports of a dozen flying objects over the Edwards Air Force Base sent an F-106 Alpha fighter jet scrambling in pursuit. Nothing turned up. According to a statement by an on-duty pilot, Daryl Clark, per records now hosted by the Nuclear Connection Project, an organization devoted to UFO research. Here's how it went down. He says, I grabbed the binoculars and got up to get a better look. The UFO was about 10 miles northwest of my position at first, sighting. It continued south till it was almost due west of me. There it made a 90-degree right turn and started to climb at a 45 to 50-degree angle. All I could see was the pulsating, not rotating light that appeared to be a small cloud being pushed by a vehicle that I could not see. Now, this is something that the History Channel covered. The UFO Hunter guys, they did a real good job on this one, folks. That's another piece that I strongly recommend that you go out and you check out based on this particular incident, because this was a big deal. We're talking Vietnam, 1965. Vietnam is just starting to cook up. America is still really super paranoid about the Russians and the Cold War and all of that. But he goes on to say that the UFO never leveled off. It just continued to climb. Aircraft always show movement in relation to the stars, but at this light moved higher, it seemed to become stabilized within the stars. In other words, it appeared to move right out into space until it finally passed out of view. In other words, this thing took off and shot straight up in the sky and just left the atmosphere, is what he's saying here. Now, the Edwards Air Force Base incident marked the tail end of the UFO craze, an artifact of the Cold War paranoia and crappy early radar systems. Project Blue Book, for its part, concluded that there has been no evidence indicating that sightings categorized as unidentified are extraterrestrial vehicles. Well, they're saying the same thing, at least that's what we're hearing. They're saying the same thing in this report. Well, we don't have any evidence that these are extraterrestrial. Okay, well, you don't have any evidence that it's not the Tooth Fairy either. Okay, but it probably isn't. I mean, chances are not Santa Claus, none of that stuff. And that's what we're saying. This incident lit Edwards Air Force Base up. I mean, this is the first time in history, folks, where we actually have confirmation of a base, and I quote, UFO officer getting into the picture on this. They had to wake this guy up out of bed and get him to come out and take a look at this. There were dozens of them. But it's not the first time that Edwards has been buzzed. And then again, there were so many witnesses to this. People all over the base, all over Edwards Air Force Base saw this. And again, the audio of it, when you listen to the audio, and again, it's a little bit long, but my goodness, it's compelling. But it's not the first time that this has happened, even at Edwards Air Force Base. On May 3rd of 1957, brought an interesting sighting to multiple high-speed photos of an unknown object sighted near Edwards Air Force Base in California. It was the morning of a balloon tracking day at Edwards, and the two-man crews were out on their station when a permanent, I don't know what this is, Asania, I don't know, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. Something was being stocked with film and ready, I guess some kind of camera. At one station, veteran civilian operators Jack Geddes and James Biddick, I think, were prepared for their part of the first test. But there in the sky, a different object awaited them. It was distant, but obviously shiny domed disc. Geddes and Biddick called to the base operation controller, Frank Baker, and asked for permission to shoot some of their film at the object. Base operations took 3 or 4 minutes to decide. Base operations took 3 or 4 minutes to decide whether or not that this was even worth wasting film on, basically. So Geddes and Biddick shot 200 to 300 feet of film at 30 frames per second of this object. As the object away. I mean, so they had plenty of time to, to really get some good photos, some good footage of this thing. The two men took the film canister to the base and made their report. The film was developed on base, and everyone involved got to look at it, including team leader Baker. These men were veteran object spotters and had seen all manner of planes, missiles, balloons, bombing runs, objects drops, and parachutes, right up to the U-2 spy plane. So these guys were in the know. They knew what was going on. I mean, they're familiar with every kind of aircraft that we had in our inventory, including top secret program like the U-2 spy plane, which is interesting. All of them knew that what they saw in this film was none of these things. The visual reports agreed on a shiny, as if metal dome disc, and the film, if viewed with a magnifying glass, supported that conclusion. According to Baker, here was a domed craft disc on film seen by highly credible observers at our nation's top air technology base. So
yeah, Edwards Air Force Base controls, if I am correct in saying so, Groom Lake.
I believe they are related. And
yes.
Well, look at Gordon Cooper, astronaut Gordon Cooper, one of not only an American hero, but the guy is actually a world hero when it comes to being an astronaut. And as credible as this man is, this man was a fighter pilot rather, all kinds of clearances, all of that. They made him one of the original astronauts, for goodness sakes, and he actually orbited the planet. Or he actually was shot into space as part of the very first astronaut program. Now he tells the story of being out there in the desert on a dry lake bed. And there were some cameramen out there that were testing some kind of a plane or an engine or something like that, where a small metallic saucer, a dome-shaped craft, shot over top of them, landed hundreds of meters away in the lake bed, put these three little landing gear down, and sat there. Okay, so naturally the cameramen, they grabbed their cameras and their gear, and they got as close to it as they possibly could, and they actually took very detailed and colored video of this thing. Okay, so when it was over with, and Gordon Cooper's, I guess he was actually in charge of that day or whatever they were doing. He took the film, gave it to the people, but he actually took the film and put it up to the light before he actually, surrendered it after it had been developed, and just so he could see it again. Now, this guy has got no reason to sully such a wonderful military career. And again, the guy is practically a world hero. So why would he come out and say something like that if it were not true? Tim, what are your thoughts?
Right, exactly. I think he's one of the more credible witnesses from the astronaut program. I do know that disc, when it put down the 3 landing gear, it stayed there for a while and let the cameraman take pictures and film it. And then all of a sudden it just rose up, and the 3 landing gear just went back into the vehicle like they were never there to begin with, and it took off. No aliens came out of the craft that I'm aware of. There's no documentation or research out there indicating that that's the case. But this happened more than once. There was another time where 3 discs, 3 flying saucers came down and landed on the dry lake bed by Edwards Air Force Base. You can look that up on Google. There's plenty of material on it. Take a look. Make a decision for yourself, and let us know in the next live stream what you thought of that.
Definitely catch that audio for sure. That audio is just so compelling. I mean, it's like a smoking gun.
So it's like this. We have all these different instances from 1965, 57, 47. Any year you can pinpoint in the calendar, there's been something that's happened that's significant in regards to UFOs, or UAPs as they call them. So there is no way possible, in my mind, that the government can come out and say, oh yeah, they're just foreign adversarial technology. Maybe the access they had to only the 120 cases may include hypersonic drone technology, but not all of them. There's no way that they're all of them.
No, there are too many different models. I mean, even if, let's say if you were a nation state and you were by some miracle be able to create this technology, I mean, you're going to create one model of it. You're not going to have the resources to, to put 4 or 5, even 50 different models, and everybody's reporting different shapes and sizes and things like that, because there are different shapes and sizes of UFOs. Tim put it brilliantly a few years back. He really did. He's like, listen, think of it like this. When you look at our vehicles, we got Ford, Chrysler, Toyota, and they're all different, but the same. They all do the same thing, but they look different. They have different features. So why wouldn't, why wouldn't alien craft have the same type of diversity?
Although in some cases there are vehicles that look like they're just imprinted, just completely the same all the time. In fact, I think Bob Lazar mentioned that the sports model vehicle looked like a lot of vehicles that they had witnessed out over the desert when they were out filming craft, and they all looked the same. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all the same, because in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that came directly out and showed you, hey, here's one that looks like an ice cream cone. Here's one that looks like a top. Here's one that looks like a top hat. Mm-hmm. There are many varieties, like Tommy's saying. So when George Knapp on Mystery Wire came out with those 3 pictures, the one of the orb, the one of what looked like kind of like a weird looking blimp, and the other one that looked like the Batman balloon, they could have very well been legitimate craft, just showing a different shape.
Absolutely.
Although I gotta say, it's very compelling idea that one looked like a Batman balloon, because it was almost identical, almost.
And I thought about that, and I did a little bit of research on that, and they're seeing this thing at over 40,000 feet. And I just can't imagine that a child's balloon, one of those foil balloons, could reach that height. I don't. Because when I first saw that and I saw that argument, I agree. I thought, well, it looks like the Batman balloon, but at that altitude, I don't know.
And then it might not be able to withstand the pressure at that height either, and the pressure on the actual foil.
Right.
So you are correct. That's a good thing to say. Yes. Okay. Tommy, any last comments on Edwards?
Well, it's just that, folks, we've seen military bases buzz repeatedly. I mean, this is not a new thing. This is not a one-off thing. This happens. It's happened a lot in history and probably happens all the time. I know personally, growing up near Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, it's been buzzed many times in my lifetime. So it's not like this is something that is a new phenomenon or whatever. The first nuclear vessel we ever had got buzzed by UFOs immediately. In fact, they took a real good look at it for a couple of hours. So this is going on. I don't know if they're interested in our nuclear technology. I don't know if they're interested in our military and how it works. But it just seems like, I mean, they've had plenty of time to observe us at this point. If their intent was hostile, and I'm not saying that it is or isn't, but if their intent was hostile, I mean, they've already got to have written the book on humanity at this point. I mean, they have to know what we can and can't do, and if we can defend ourselves or not, or whatever. So maybe they're just indifferent. Maybe we're their children. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? All righty, we're going to move on to our second segment. We covered the last week and scoured the news for pertinent news reports and different news clips that both supported and did not support the UFO report issue. So here we go. Oops, hold on, Matt. That was dumb. Okay, here we go.
So the Pentagon is going to present Congress with an unclassified report on recent UFO sightings as early as today. Our next guest was on board the USS Princeton off the Southern California coast in 2004 when he witnessed this tic-tac-shaped object flying through the air. Sean Cahill joins us now. He's retired Navy Chief Master at Arms. Sean, great to have you with us today. What are your expectations for this report, and what do you hope it will do in terms of shedding more light on this issue that some people say in the military are seen actually quite often?
Well, I'm keeping my expectations low, but I'm ready to pivot based on the information we're given. I expect the UAPTF to get what they ask for from the government. The question is how much cooperation the various aspects within our government are going to give to the task force.
Okay, what did you see years ago?
Well, in 2004, when I was stationed on board the Princeton, I was up on the bridge while we were coordinating the efforts to try to find out whether or not these tracks on radar were real or not. Once we had determined that they were real objects, we sortied some F-18s out there. And the night before they sortied, I had seen 5 to 7 objects up in the sky at approximately 45 degrees off the port bow at about 2,000 feet. All of them moved together towards the center of a circle in a counterclockwise fashion, and they all disappeared or blinked out. This seemed to correspond with the movements of the things that we were seeing on the radar as well.
Wow, 17 years ago. What were you thinking at the moment?
I thought that what I was seeing was exotic. I had never seen anything move like that in the sky, whether a meteor, an aircraft, or anything in the spectrum. I didn't know what I had seen. Once we had finished that, I had gotten on with the exercise and moved on.
When you look at it, back at it now, knowing what you know, what do you think the source could potentially be of this? What makes the most sense to you?
Well, it's going to surprise some people, but what makes the most sense doesn't seem to be any of our adversaries or near-peer technology. In 2004, what we witnessed there showed us all of what Luis Elizondo calls the 5 observables, which definitely indicate an exotic technology.
Why do you say your expectations are so low? Why would that be based on this report?
What a lot of people don't understand is this isn't a brand new subject. This subject has been in and out of our government for the last 70 years and has been investigated by numerous portions of our government. It has never seemed to be a subject that anyone wanted to talk about openly. And in the last few years since I've gotten involved, we've fought a stigma just to get this conversation out in the open.
You know, Harry Reid has even suggested that there are UFO parts in the hands of defense contractors. Do you think that's reasonable to assume or believe?
I think based on the people who've made those statements, that's a highly likely possibility.
Chief Cahill, we're going to stay in touch with you. Don't know when it's going to come out, but there's going to be a report. Wow. We do believe, well, we think it's going to be public, right? Or at least a portion of it, Chief. So
we don't know what they are or where they came from, but we know that UFOs are real. So what are we going to do about them? And why is nobody freaking out? Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, author of Extraterrestrial, joins us now. Thanks so much for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We had a great conversation recently on my podcast about the theories that you advance in your book and everything that we've learned about UFOs recently. Why do you think it is that so many Americans seem to be dismissive of this or not paying attention to it when it should be, I think, one of the biggest stories that we are all talking about?
Well, I do think that the general public is very interested, and it's just that the scientific community very often ridicules this subject, and we should be guided by evidence. And in the context of UFOs, we should get more data on these and make it part of the scientific research program that we have.
It seems to me that we need to have more transparency toward all of these things so that you don't have kind of a fictionalized version of it that is thought up by people. Why has that been so difficult?
Well, because people prefer to be in their comfort zone. And, one reason I'm interested in seeking intelligence in space is because I don't often find it here on Earth. There was this first interstellar object that we discovered in the sky called the Oumuamua. It means a scout in the Hawaiian language. That's where the telescope was in Hawaii that discovered it. And it didn't look like anything we have seen before, not like a comet or an asteroid. And it had so many anomalies that I describe in my book that it's basically a wake-up call for us to search every object that comes into the solar system from outside. And the experience should be just like walking on the beach. Most of the time you see rocks or seashells that were naturally produced, but every now and then you might see a plastic bottle that tells you there is a civilization out there.
We started the conversation tonight, this evening, with a conversation about the moonshot 60 years ago. What can we do to get more and more young people in particular more interested in space and in this kind of research going forward?
Well, I do think that the future of humanity is in space, because currently all our eggs are in one basket here on Earth. And there is a risk that a major catastrophe will destroy everything that is precious to us. And we do need to think about spreading our eggs in multiple baskets. And that means going to other planets in the solar system or even beyond. And I do think that there was a lot of excitement with the Apollo program, and since then it sort of died out, and it's about time to rekindle it.
Well, another week, another major news story related to UFOs. The New York Times is reporting about the contents of a soon-to-be-released Pentagon investigation into the UFO mystery.
Yeah, the Times says the report to Congress will leave open the question of whether some UFOs are indeed alien spacecraft. George Knapp has our story.
The initial New York Times headline declared government finds no evidence UFOs are alien spacecraft, then clarified things in a later headline that added the government can't rule out alien tech either. A more accurate headline could have been, Pentagon says we don't know what UFOs are. Or the real news in the story, Pentagon says UFOs are not secret American technology. Unnamed officials who've seen a classified report not yet provided to Congress told the Times the report analyzes 120 UFO incidents from over the past 13 years. Much of the evidence was previously compiled into a briefing document produced by the UAP Task Force, a report that includes startling images of craft considered to be true unknowns. A few images and videos from that report have already been made public by Mystery Wire and filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. Photos taken by Navy pilots off the East Coast and videos recorded by the Navy off the West Coast. Unknown objects that surrounded 9 warships in July 2019.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
2 other incidents evaluated by the UAP Task Force, the so-called Gimbal UFO event off Florida in 2015 and the Tic Tac incident off Southern California in 2004. The Times says the unreleased report leaves open the question of whether the amazing technology might belong to a foreign adversary. David Fravor, the pilot who chased the Tic Tac, shared his opinions with us in 2019.
If you'd have asked me in 2004, I didn't know. My thing is, it's now almost 15 years later, and that technology is still, no one has figured it out or no one has seen it. You can hide stuff for a long time. But hiding stuff for 15 years I think it gets harder and harder.
If the Times story is accurate, then the upcoming UFO report will be amazingly similar to this assessment written by an American general back in 1947, which basically said these things are real, but we don't know whose they are. The biggest news in the Times story is that the report essentially will rule out the possibility that secret American military tech is responsible for the most notable UFO incidents.
Splash.
Former Nevada Senator Harry Reid, who co-sponsored the predecessor program to the UAP Task Force, has said all along that the Russians and Chinese are also studying the UFO mystery for the same reason we are, meaning they're not ours. Lou Elizondo, who spent 10 years as head of the ATIP UFO investigation, says the technology seen by U.S. pilots is beyond anything known on Earth. He told Mystery Wire the U.S., Russia, and China are all in the same boat.
It's rotated.
We may be dealing with something here that we really don't understand. Because if we're having the same problem that Russia is in other countries, then chances are this is this is a topic that is of mutual concern and interest for more than just the United States. In fact, it would paint the picture that this is not a U.S. phenomenon at all, but this is rather a global phenomenon.
The UAP report is due in Congress by June 25th. What we don't know yet is what access the task force had to classified files and materials stashed in dark corners of the Pentagon or CIA. After 70 years of secrecy, did the task force crack that veil in a mere 6 months? Retired intelligence officer Colonel John Alexander doubts it.
Well, I think there's 2 issues. The most serious pushback you're not going to see. That's going to happen behind the curtain, if you will. That's where they say, hell no, we won't go. I'm not going to provide the data.
George Knapp, 8 News Now.
I know there are alien craft here from another planet. I saw other ones, but I was inside one. I know it was not made on Earth. I know it was made with materials that we cannot fabricate, we cannot duplicate, and we've never been able to. I know it uses a power source that's so advanced that we could only dream of something along those lines, and the energy density on it is phenomenal. I also know that there's lots of nonsense information that has gone around. Look, disinformation is the most powerful way to distort facts. You just throw a bunch of useless stuff out there, and they just take the real facts along with the nonsense and bundle it together and say, well, this is just impossible. And, there, your security is maintained. But I also know that at some point they've examined or had bodies of alien creatures somewhere. So I know that stuff for a fact. And that's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're muted.
There we go. There are people out there in the know that actually have had interaction with UFOs and alien bodies and so on and so forth, such as Bob Lazar, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it all at the end of that news compilation, because the news compilation was inferring that they would not rule out alien spacecraft. So if they're not ruling it out, and Bob Lazar is stating, hey, I was inside one, then we all know for a fact in the ufology community, this is the case. So whether the UFO report gives us what we want to hear or not, I think it's up to us in the community and elsewhere to go out and spread the word that UFOs are real, aliens exist, they've been here, they're still visiting here. Why they're coming, we don't know necessarily, but we do know they're here. So get the word out, because maybe we're going to be the grassroots movement that actually brings about disclosure, not the government.
I understand when someone is telling you about a story, a UFO story, about a UFO encounter. I understand how crazy that sounds, okay, even though we're told crazier things every day en masse. And I think, thankfully, we're finally at a point in time where some of that stigma is starting to be lifted, okay? And to quote my colleague here, these are no longer stories told by a drunken hillbilly. There are people from all walks of life that are having these encounters, that are having these sightings, okay? And this is real. Now, how real is it? Well, we don't know that yet. And unfortunately, it looks, well, everything is pointing to the fact that this report may not give us the answers that we've all been looking for. I think that's unfortunate. I really do. I think it's typical of the United States government, and I'm saying that as a former employee, but I think it's tragic. At this point, we've seen the worst in humanity in a lot of different ways in the last year. We all have. And you can actually walk outside right now and you can look around and you can tell the people right off the bat who are going to have a problem if there is full disclosure. They're going to have a problem being able to accept that and deal with the fact that we're no longer the only ones in the universe. So in other words, think about this. The question of that humankind has been asking since we first looked up in the stars, is this it? Are we all that there is? Are we alone in the universe? Now, once that question is actually answered in a scientific, definitive way, okay, you're going to see a lot of things change in our society, and probably not a lot of it for the better, to be honest. Another reason that I don't believe that these craft are in someone else's military arsenal, let's say, part of their inventory, is because we're not seeing some sort of major industrial revolution out of either China or Russia. Okay, we're not seeing, because if you had a power source like this, well, that would solve a lot of problems, wouldn't it? I mean, you're talking about these countries are still powering their industrial revolution, if you will, with coal and nuclear and all the same stuff that we use. Now, if they had this kind of technology, this kind of power source, I mean, they could clean up they could take over the planet economically, much less militarily. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, one thing I got to refer to is Mario UFO in the chat said, if this is not U.S. tech, then where's Bob Lazar's UFOs from secret back-engineered products? Is he lying? Because the Pentagon says that it isn't. Well, it's the old story, he said, she said. So what I'm going to say to you is, one side saying they're telling the truth, the other side says they're telling the truth. What you need to do is do your own research and make up your own mind, because the government's not going to give us a conclusive answer. They're just not, because that would relinquish control over us, the people. So like Tommy said, in regards to new technologies that could change our world, I mean, Nikola Tesla had patents out there that would have changed our way of doing things in our society long ago. But the government took them up and hid them away because they did not want to lose control of the petroleum-based industries and coal and all that good stuff. So what I'm going to say to you is, do your research in regards to the backstory concerning UFOs. It's not always just about the ships flying in the air or who's piloting them. It's about how they're keeping the secret of these technologies they've recovered and they've back engineered, Mario. They have too, because I do believe that monofilament cable that we use for our TV sets and night vision and some other things, the solid state circuit board was originally pulled from the Roswell crash. I mean, if you read the day after Roswell, it indicates that this information, this technology was dispersed to industry. And that's where we got it. It was back engineered, because at the time of the switch from vacuum tubes to solid state circuitry, we weren't even thinking in the direction of circuitry. We were thinking about vacuum tubes and how we could improve the amount of pressure in the vacuum tube. When they switched to circuitry, it was in a matter of like 16 years, which is dramatically quick.
Fiber optics, look what fiber optics has done for communications. And again, that's not something that we ever even thought of. It was not on the table anywhere until all of a sudden one day it was. And it just so happens it happened right in the late 50s, early 60s is when we started seeing the advent of some of these things. And like Tim said, to Tim's point, the printed circuit. I mean, we were trying to build a better vacuum tube right up until the printed circuit came out.
Right.
And we discovered it. It wasn't, Japan or anybody like that. It was the United States. Now, we shared the technology with everybody else. We did do that. But that being said, I mean, you can go back. If you go back and you look at where our science was and where our science was headed up until about 1960, and that fork in the road that we took, I mean, it looks unnatural. And a lot of scientists, a lot of people that are a lot smarter than I am will tell you that it looks unnatural. The development it happened a lot faster than they thought. Now, that being said, they're also saying that if they had released all of the technology that they have, we could be at least 100 years ahead of where we are right now, including in terms of clean power, things of that nature. So to Mario's question, I would say we've also talked about the balance of power. If we were to come out as the United States government and say, oh yeah, by the way, we've got 9 of these discs and they're in a hangar in S4 in Nevada, okay, and they're, let's say, 1 million years ahead of anything anybody else has, well, that's going to make every other superpower on this planet very nervous. I mean, look at how these sightings are doing it right now. Obviously, the military is talking about these sightings because it's starting to make them nervous. Okay, so it's not all as simple as just come out and say, okay, we've got this stuff and just come clean. There are too many questions that have to be asked. You're talking about military involvement with UFOs. You're talking about alien abduction. You're talking about, various things that, why haven't we been using this power source that we have? Why have you been lying to us for 75 years? All of these things are going to come to a head in society at the same time. So
all of our technologies are pretty much archaic. I mean, if you look at the spontaneous combustion engine in your car, that's been outdated for like 60 years. I mean, they're just coming out now with the electric car. Well, the electric car actually existed back in the 70s, and they hushed it up because they knew it would work. But the problem with electric cars is charging stations, and then you have to have fossil fuels to generate the electricity. So basically, you're getting into that again.
We didn't even invent the the right kind of battery, nickel cadmium. What am I talking? Nickel hydride. What am I trying to say here? The batteries that are in our phones. That technology.
Lithium ion.
Thank you. Lithium ion didn't come out until like 1986, and even then it was huge and it was not as efficient as they are now. And we didn't really have a great way of storing power up until lithium ion technology, to be perfectly honest.
One thing I'm going to say is there is a direct connection to your cell phone to back engineered alien technology. So I do know for a fact that there is a connection between the two. So when you're carrying around that Apple iPhone 12 Pro in your pocket or a nice Android, realize you're carrying around back engineered alien technology. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Anyways, what I'm going to say also is this. When they're pushing solar power and they're pushing electric vehicles, it's not necessarily what they need to do. The reason why they're doing that is to cover up for the fact that they have zero-point energy devices. And they don't want to put them out in the public arena, because if they do, you can power your house off the grid. You will not have to pay an electric bill anymore because you'll be sucking power from the vacuum around you.
You wouldn't need the infrastructure, the power lines and the power stations and substations. You wouldn't need that. So then you wouldn't need jobs to be able to maintain and build all that stuff. So that's a major job killer right there. I mean, there's a reason, there's an argument to be made for keeping some of this stuff, I think, under wraps. I'm just not sure it's a good enough one to warrant withholding these types of technologies. I mean, I get it. Okay, like they always say, if you think the Middle East is bad now, well, nobody needs their oil anymore. Okay, I get that. But then again, at what point do we move forward in technology and say, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and take the leap. We're going to go ahead and jump off the cliff here and just let the chips fall where they may. I mean, the Middle East is going to be messed up no matter what anyway. So you have to look at it, I think, more grounded, more realistically than we're looking at it.
Yeah, so zero-point energy, they say, could change our world for the better. And a lot of other technologies that would spawn off of that. Kind of like the several items that we got from the Roswell crash. And the Socorro, New Mexico crash, and other Aztec, New Mexico crash, and so on and so forth. We've always been harvesting materials from crashes. And do we have them? Of course we do. It's called exotic material now. That's the new terminology that's being used. Exotic materials, they're saying not made on Earth. Well, the one thing I'm going to say about that is, and I've said this to Tommy before, that some exotic materials may be created on the ISS. But the problem with that is, and Tommy pointed this out to me, is those materials we can identify. The ones that they're talking about are materials that are so exotic that we can't even identify them on our periodic charts. So if that's the case, then there's more evidence to prove that the UFO report should come out and say, yeah, we got exotic materials from foreign craft that are not coming from foreign adversarial powers. They're coming from a different world or a different dimension or somewhere else altogether. That's my opinion.
Which lets the alien cat right out of the bag is the thing. I mean, immediately you've if you come out and you say, okay, yeah, which I thought was interesting, Luis Elizondo actually did drop this bombshell a week or so ago that we do have exotic material in our possession, or at least the United States government does, I should say. But I think what's so interesting about that is that if you were to come out and actually admit that, then you're admitting, okay, well, then if it wasn't made on this planet, it wasn't made by humans, okay, then who made it? So the government's going to have to answer that question, which opens up the entire can of worms that we're not alone, alien abduction, all the things that they're trying to avoid. They're going to go ahead. It's going to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. And here's the thing: I can't speak for anyone else's government because I'm an American citizen, but I can and will speak for my government. And it's like we've kept this bottled up for so long. We've lied, or the United States government has lied and deceived for decades at this point. And they've painted themselves into a corner so sharply into a corner that they really don't have any way out. I mean, there is no good way to break the news at this point, because people are going to panic and they're going to be pissed off because they've been lied to. Now, again, if this report's going to come out and it's actually going to try to blame somebody's military technology for what we're seeing out there, look, please don't even bother. Please don't pee down my leg today. I'm wearing shorts. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear something more substantiative than that. And I want to be treated like I'm not a child and like I'm an intellectual person and I can actually handle my environment around me.
Let's just come out and say it. How many of you people in the chat and everybody that's watching online were frustrated to a very high level on the 1st of June when the report didn't come out? I mean, it was written into law. Yeah. It was a congressional mandate for the report to come out on the 1st. Now, it was originally mandated for the 25th, but they moved it back to the 1st, thinking they would have enough time to get it out. And then Lou Elizondo insinuated that it would be an interim report, but that didn't come out. And then all of a sudden we get the New York Times article, which was altered 3 times for the title because they had to specify what the Department of Defense wanted them to say.
Exactly. And it's all being controlled and monitored and all that. And you can better, it's not like the United States government everybody that's in the entire United States bureaucracy, I should say, is standing around right now going, oh, okay, well, we better give them all the information we can in the most efficient possible way, because let me tell you, folks, it's not how the United States government works. Again, what they're probably trying to do right now is they're trying to figure out how can we tell people something without actually telling them something. How can we give them information without giving them information? And I think that's, again, because they've painted themselves into a corner. They don't want to let too much out, but they have to give us something, I would think, to maintain any sort of credibility as a governing body at this point. I mean, what can I say? What are your thoughts, Tim?
Well, one thing I have to say again is Mario UFO says the genie was always going to come out of the bottle, just didn't think it would take 70 years. Well, it looks by the way they're acting that it might take another couple decades if they don't come clean. And I think they're going to hear the uproar from the UFO community and online and people talking about it on the news, demanding an answer. That we're taking this seriously now. We're not talking about reflections off a goose's butt at high altitude. We're talking about actual craft. We're talking about pilots in these craft that are doing things that our pilots couldn't survive. So what is it?
They're even doing things that we can't even build a craft itself to be able to survive that kind of like 600 G-force. We don't build stuff that does that, folks. No possible way.
No, we can't do it.
Yet here they are. And they're harassing United States ships with impunity. We're seeing more and more there, and there has been an uptick in sightings and things of that nature. I know our link on the website's blowing up, with different reports and things. And don't get me wrong, a lot of that stuff is frankly BS, or something that we just can't, it's not something that we can investigate because it's just too far out there. We still want the report. That being said, some of these things that people are seeing and telling us about are actually real and very compelling,
There are a lot of sightings of spherical, like white orb UFOs all over the place, all over the world, in clusters, groups of 5, 10, or more even. I think one of the groups would be 3 at a time. If you see 3 at a time, it's not always in a triangular shape. That's a common amount of orbs. I've seen a lot of reports lately like that. But the problem with that is you cannot discern what they are. Because the cameras, the digital cameras, the DSLR cameras, even the mirrorless cameras have difficulty in processing the image from the eye to the actual object. So when you see it, it's distorted, and we don't know what they are. So that's the problem. That's why we're looking for an answer, and that's why some of us are turning to the government. Whereas in my case, I'm researching as much as I can, talking to as many people as I can, doing interviews on the channel with credible ufologists so that we can bring the news to you and bring the news to ourselves, because that's the whole point.
It's just not as taboo as it was a month ago. It just simply isn't. This subject is, now you can actually be a lot more open about it. Now, again, you're always going to run into those people out there that not going to believe it no matter what, and they're going to be skeptics no matter what. They just don't have the ability to open up their mind and maybe even the arrogance to just think that we're the only intelligent, life in the universe. Because I'll tell you, if that's the case, the universe sucks. Okay, let's be honest, it really does. I got to believe that there's more than that out there. I mean, if you think about our own planet, it's hosted life before humans. I mean, you had the dinosaurs and large insects and things like that back in those days. If they hadn't gotten wiped out, what would this planet look like today? What would they have evolved to become? And
they even say that some of them did evolve. Some of the ones that went underground actually did evolve and go out into space. Whether we can verify that or not, that's another thing. But they do say they went out into space. They originated here. People refer to them as the Draco reptilians, but I don't know. I don't have any definitive proof to actually prove that, but I have read a lot of literature on it.
Mm-hmm.
We do want to advertise something. We have an interview with this gentleman, Grant Cameron, from White House UFOs. That's his YouTube channel. Live on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be an interesting interview. We hope that you can be there. He's a very interesting gentleman. He's one of the featured speakers at Contact in the Desert. So come by and join the journey for that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Also,
ahead, Tommy.
Folks, remember to go ahead and reset your bell for alerts for the channel, because here's what we were talking about earlier. Once this report does drop, we're going to probably do a special that night. It may just be the two of us or whoever else we can get on short notice, but we're going to try to do it right then and there. We want to hit it while it's hot, while it's fresh. We want to bring it to you first, and believe me, as soon as I get that thing, I'm going to parse through it big time.
As soon as it drops, say it drops on the 25th, which is, I think, a Friday. If it drops on the 25th, we're going to do a live stream that night. We're not going to wait until Saturday. We'll just do the live stream right away.
Yep.
And that would be our live stream for the week. But that's the biggest story right now in America is, do aliens exist? Are they here? Are they real? And we need to address that issue. We're not going to let that go here at the UFO Man channel. So if you're willing to come by and visit us, we'll bring you the news when we get it.
Absolutely. But be it good, be it bad, be it ugly, we're going to be here with it, folks. We're going to, like I say,
we're going to be here.
We're going to go through it with you. We're going to bring it to you.
Any last comments, Tommy?
Well, folks, just want to thank everybody for coming out. I really appreciate it. I think we had a good show tonight. Looks like we had a great crowd. Everybody in the chat, thank you for coming. Folks, please do remember to go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you ever want to leave a comment, that helps our algorithm as well. We really appreciate that. Other than that, we've also got our website. We appreciate it if you go out and visit it. That's going to be www.ufomannetwork.com. So if you could go ahead and do that for us, we'd appreciate it. Other than that, we're just going to keep you up on everything that we can. We're going to stay on this report issue. We're going to stay on the government, and we're going to give you guys the tools to help us do that as well. Okay? Because I mean, this is don't hand us a glass of water here and tell us it's something else, because that's just ridiculous. At this point, I think we can handle it. I think we can at least handle the fact that it's not an adversarial technology.
We also have a Patreon page. There's the address right there. Check it out. Join if you'd like to. We got some really cool merch that we're giving away. and a lot of cool information on the site that's not on the YouTube channel. Okay. Also, in subscribing to our channel, it gives us a little more leverage in getting big name interviews. So if you want to see Lou Elizondo on UFO Man, or you want to see Jeremy Corbell, or you want to see George Noory and the like, the more subscribers we get, the more leverage we have. So please subscribe. Don't forget to hit that like button and share it with all your social medias.
Please.
Anyways, I want to thank everybody in the chat room for coming tonight. I want to thank everybody who participated online. And as always, from Tommy and myself,